It's episode 180 for this Tuesday, May 12th, 2026. High atop a rainy Jacksonville, Florida. Yes, we're a little bit later than usual, but it is what it is. The stream said 2:30 start time, but 2:45, close enough, 15 minutes late. Anyways, got an interesting show for you guys today. Some things to discuss. Of course, we have our typical rundown for our show, which will be, it's not like a typical schedule. Of course, it changes throughout the year, but of course, we have our team record projections series. We have that continuing with LSU today. And we also are starting our coaching grades. Okay, we're doing the ACC. We've got a few names on here. I'm not going to go all through all 12 or 14 members of the conference, just the ones that are probably notable and the ones that are maybe not so obvious. Like, for example, Bill Belichick won't be on here. He has an F, so that's kind of self-explanatory. So we have ACC coaching grades, LSU team projection, and we also have thoughts on Lane Kiffin, the whole situation there with him and the Vanity Fair article that came out, I believe, yesterday. So we'll go over that. If you are new here, first of all, welcome to the show. Again, we do this Tuesday and Thursday around this time, 1, 2 o'clock, 2:30, 2:45. Do the show twice a week on YouTube live right now, live on YouTube, and on Spotify, which will come out either later today or tomorrow, whenever I get a chance to do it. Of course, be sure to follow us on the socials. I have @4vert_pod on X. Follow us on Instagram as well. There should be a link there. And also be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed. If you're obviously listening to this on Spotify, then it goes without saying. But yeah, be sure to follow us over there. Again, high top, rainy Jacksonville, Florida. Finally getting some beneficial rain. So we'll say if you hear any thunder and stuff in the background, I don't think we're going to. We did have some storms really early this morning, around 5 o'clock in the morning. If you hear thunder and stuff in the background, nothing I can do about it. Is what it is. But should be, I think, mostly fine. I just, at the moment here in the Jacksonville metro area, it's mostly steady rain. The bigger thunderstorms, severe weather that's actually down to our south at the moment. So I don't think we have any thunder going on, but I guess as a reminder, of course, this is getting close to the rainy season here in Florida, which means afternoon thunderstorms. So that means with our show, you may or may not, hear thunder and see lightning in the background once in a while. So far, so good. I think we'll be okay with the storm stuff. Anyway, let's get into the show here. Guess we'll get our graphics ready to go. And we'll get started. Our first topic, which will be coaching grades for ACC. Again, we're not doing every single coach in ACC. So Belichick, Fran Brown will be on here, but we're not doing all of the names. For example, Fran Brown would probably give him a B-, B+ probably, I guess. So we're going to do a good group of names, I think. And let me get the graphic up here. Go to the Restream site. So stand by if that as you get this. We're still getting used to having the graphics and stuff. So apologies for the confusion, but we should be. We're getting better at this. It's getting a lot better. Got this load up on my other computer here. Then we will get graphics ready. We'll have to do this a couple of times. It's all right. Again, if you're on Spotify, ignore the silence here as we get the graphics going. But again, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Is this the correct one we want? Might be it. Yeah, this is it. Okay. So move graphic over here. Okay. So ACC head coaching grades. Again, we're doing this for, I guess, all the conferences, the ACC, Big Ten next week. We'll do, or Big Ten next show. We'll do the SEC and Big 12 next week. I don't think we've done this in a little bit, but here we are. I guess we're doing it now. Again, we're not doing all the coaches on here. We're just doing a majority of them. So again, for example, Fran Brown probably would give him B+. He's not on here. Bill Belichick probably a D, F. But here's the coaches that we have on here. Probably the ones that are probably more interesting, I guess, and not as straightforward with guys like Fran Brown, Belichick, James Franklin. Not necessarily long enough there to get a coaching grade, but because we're already doing coaching hiring hiring grade for him may have. But anyway, first up is Mike Norvell, C minus. I mean, you have to, and I guess our methodology here for doing this, we're doing basically the entire sample size of them being at the school. Okay, so like Dabo Sweeney's obviously going to get a higher grade than he might get if you're doing a smaller sample size. Probably should have said that at the beginning, but yeah, this is your entire career at the school you're at currently. Okay, so like that's how we're doing it. So Mike Norvell, C minus. Again, if you're doing the last few years, probably a little bit lower. I think you still have to remember that he did lead them to a 13-1 season, a 10-3 season within the last few years. So there is, the potential for him to have a good season. They just haven't done it yet. Again, it's the old classic Josh Pate, cannot versus have not. They have not had a good season lately. They just haven't been able to do it. Doesn't mean they can't do it again. They just haven't. So if we're taking his entire career, those 2 years, good. The rest of it, oh well. So I think a C minus probably, I think is fair. Next up here, Manny Diaz at Duke. I think an A. And I think part of this too is also considering the school's expectations, right? So the level of the school you're at. So Manny Diaz at Duke, A minus, or just an A. Probably, if you were to put Manny Diaz's career and time at, let's say, or his entire tenure at the school at, let's say, a different program, bigger program like Miami, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas A&M, probably wouldn't be an A. But for Duke football and the historic history of Duke football, I think an A is probably fair for Manny Diaz. Pretty good, right? Made it to the ACC championship game last year, won it. So I think that qualifies as an A. Dabo Sweeney, A minus. Again, including his entire career, I think an A minus is pretty fair. If the last couple years didn't exist, he would have been a lot higher, an A plus. But I think the last few years have certainly shown a massive decline in his sort of in his entire history, if you will, his entire record. So if things change within the next year or so, if he wins another national title, that will go up. But for the moment, A minus. I think that's pretty fair. Brent Key, B plus. Seems a little low, but granted, when he first got there, he was inheriting a terrible program that was under Jeff Collins. So you have to give him you have to give him a little bit of grace here. But I think a B plus, fair enough. He had one good year last year, at least one big pop year with winning double-digit games. We'll see what happens this year. Great, you have a lot of turnover on the roster. Up next, Mario Cristobal, A plus. Got to the national championship. Grant you, yes, smaller sample size. First year, not so good. So, technically, if you wanted to swap out Dabo Sweeney and Mario Cristobal's grade, that's totally fine. But I think buying against recency bias here, I think Mario Cristobal is an A plus coaching grade, at least from last in his entire tenure at the school. Currently, as he's been there, I think an A plus is pretty much fair. I mean, getting the national title, that's the best thing Miami has had in since the early 2000s. So hats off to him. Brett Lashley, B plus, again, a little bit lower. I know last year didn't go quite the way you thought. Now, granted, it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't as bad, given that it's a G5 program transitioning to a P4. But B plus, solid enough, I think, solid. And then Jeff Brom, hey, I don't know what to say. The guy is extremely consistent, hasn't done anything bad there at Louisville. And I think much like he has been the last few years, he'll be a team just to watch. They're a very consistent program there, very good program, very stable program, not a lot of movement, not a lot of controversy. And I just think he's doing a very, very solid job there at Louisville. So, again, Mike Norvell, C minus, Manny Diaz, A, Dabo Sweeney, A minus, Brent Key, B plus, Mario Cristobal, A plus, Brett Lashley, B plus, Jeff Brom, solid A. I think that's probably fair for a lot of folks there. Again, we couldn't do everyone on here, or else this segment would be 2 hours long. But yeah, folks like Fran Brown, probably in the same category as Brent Key, Brett Lashley, B plus. Bill Belichick probably would be the lowest grade, probably a borderline F, probably a D minus. So among others, and of course, some of these coaches again have been recently hired, right? So you have guys like James Franklin just got there, right? Tony Elliott, keep it on here. I would probably give him a B plus, probably. Dave Dorn, B plus, same thing. If it is NC State, so maybe you adjust a little bit higher or not. But I think the group here we have is diverse enough. We could have easily gone all A's here, but we have some A's and some B's and some 1C. I think pretty good for the most part. So yeah, we're starting this out, this new little segment. We'll be doing this next couple of shows. So on Thursday we'll have the Big Ten. We'll do the Big Ten coaches. We may do a longer list probably, since there's more schools to talk about in the Big Ten. So we'll do them, and then we'll do the SEC and the ACC and the ACC today. We'll do the SEC and the Big 12 next week. So that's how it works. So yeah, head coaching grades for 2026. Again, we're not doing everyone on here. This is just the graphic we have. But and I guess if there was any of these, I would re-rate. Maybe bring Key, maybe move him to an A-, given what he inherited there at Georgia Tech. But Granchi has not been there long enough to kind of get a really good sample size. We've seen the okay and then the really good, right? So not a whole lot to really, I guess, do an average of. So I think a B+ is probably fair. You could have gone a little bit higher. Mike Norvell is probably the best one. I think him, Manny Diaz, and probably Jeff Brom are probably the ones I feel the most good about. Right with Cristobal, again, maybe a little bit too pie in the sky there. Maybe a little bit of recency bias, probably. Again, if you wanted to switch out him with Dabo Swinney's grade, that's totally cool with me. But that is my decision, and I have, it's my constitutional right to do that. So, head coaching grades for the ACC, there they are. Argue amongst yourselves in the comments there on YouTube and on, I guess, Spotify. We'll probably post that graphic later at some point during on X, so for everyone to look at. Again, if you are new here, again, welcome into the show. Again, we do this show twice a week. This again, by the way, this will probably be a shorter show than usual because the schedule I'm dealing with. So it might be one of our shorter ones we've had in a while, but we'll see how long it goes. But yeah, raining here in Jacksonville, finally getting some beneficial rain. Finally, they'll have it on good authority that after today / early tomorrow morning, it'll be back to dry weather. Go figure. So we get this nice relief of all this rain happening, but it's not going to last very long, unfortunately. But, it is Florida. The rainy season, like I mentioned, will be starting soon. So we will get more rain. We'll be getting help on the way. It will take a little bit. Definitely not within the next 7 days. By the way, I guess I'll check radar real quick. Yeah, mostly just heavy rain. Have a tornado warning near Tampa today, actually. But up here in Jacksonville, just a cool, stable rain. Fine with me, not dealing with the severe weather. But let's see here. Moving right along. Okay, so we have LSU team record projection. We have Lane Kiffin thoughts, and we'll get out of here. Again, apologies for a shorter-ish show, but is what it is. But we'll have a lot to talk about with LSU here for sure. That's a definite. So let me get the graphic ready here on Restream. Again, if you're listening on YouTube or on Spotify, if you hear long pauses here, we're just getting the graphics ready. Again, we don't really have a big production crew here at the studio at my apartment. So just bear with us. We're still working things out, but I think we're getting pretty good. I think a lot of folks probably are liking the new graphics and whatnot. Again, they are AI generated. Could have done these myself, but, for the sake of time, we're not going to do it that way. Maybe in the future we'll get actual graphics and stuff, but good start, I think. Let's see, which one are we going to have next? Okay, yeah, that is the LSU schedule. Okay, so LSU team record projection. Of course, we've been doing this for the past week or so now, I believe. So we've done Florida State, North Carolina. We've done them, right? And we have LSU next. So finally diving into the SEC, and then next show we'll probably go to the Big Ten, probably more likely. Again, I know a lot of folks probably, Big Ten folks probably going, where's the Big Ten at? Where's Ohio State? Where's Michigan? Don't worry, we'll get to them eventually. We're going to do every single major team in every single conference. That's our goal here. So LSU schedule, you see it on the screen there, graphic here on YouTube. If not, I'll read it out to you here in a moment. But of course, LSU, they of course bring in Lane Kiffin. Well, again, we'll talk about the Vanity Fair stuff here in a moment, a little bit. But of course, Lane Kiffin comes in, replaces Brian Kelly. Last year kind of was what it was. You lose Garrett Nussmeier, you bring in Sam Leavitt. Fingers crossed he's healthy. I think he should be healthy. Did a decent job in the portal, but again, big emphasis here on the health. If everyone's healthy and ready to go, then I think we should be good to go. In terms of LSU having maybe a better year, but then again, you never know. And I look at LSU this year and look at Lane Kiffin. I know about a month ago or so he brought up the whole expectation thing, and I do think a lot of folks are really holding on to the fact that LSU could be a good team this year, right? Bringing in Lane Kiffin, he's inheriting probably a good roster, brings in a good transfer portal class, which is true, and that's the reason why in our post-spring top 25 we had LSU borderline top 10. So we're also expecting them to have a pretty good year, and you'll see in our team record projection, yeah, their best case and worst case scenario is going to be the higher end of most of these teams we do, with the exception of a few other ones, right? Now, their worst case scenario, when we'll get to in a moment, definitely considers the fact that this is a first year, right? And as we've seen with every single major head coach that's been hired, whether it was your former coach, last year Brian Kelly, whether it was Steve Sarkisian in his first couple of years of Texas, Kirby Smart's first year at Georgia. The first year for every single head coach is not exactly, doesn't like to go to plan, right? So coaches like Kirk Cignetti, Gus Malzahn, his first year at Auburn, Sonny Dykes, first year at TCU, those are not normal. Okay, those are the exception to the rule. The rule usually is you go, a little bit, you have a transitional period. It's like I guess if you want to use the word liminal transitional period, that's what first year for most college football coaches looks like, right? It's not always an easy, clean, like again, Gus Malzahn at Auburn, first year, gets to the national championship, doesn't win it, he gets to it. Same thing with Sonny Dykes, another example. Again, gets to the national championship, loses it, gets destroyed emphatically by Georgia. Anything else, Steph Kirk today? Again, those are not the typical, that's not the expectation. At least that is the expectation, but it's not necessarily the rule. Okay, I guess what I was trying to say is that those situations like Malzahn at Auburn, Sonny Dykes at Texas Christian, TCU, and Coach Cignetti at Indiana, those are not those are not normal situations for your first year. I'm trying to say here, it's usually more bumpier, right? So again, go back to Brian Kelly. Again, I know a lot of folks are going to say, Brian Kelly, we're done with him, but again, even in his first year, right? They, bumpy to start the year. You lose to Florida State in the opener. You get destroyed by Tennessee at home. Then you make it to the ACC championship game, right? How about that? Ed Orgeron, first year as a full-time head coach, he loses to Troy. The worst loss in LSU history in terms of the type of team he lost to, at least in my lifetime. Then a few years later, he wins the national championship. So again, you never know. A first-year head coach for any major program, it could be very, very erratic. It's not. Again, it is not always the instant. Microwave. It's it's an oven. It's a process, right? And I think for Lane Kiffin and LSU, it could be that, right? Look at her schedule here, the graphic here on YouTube, which is right here, or on the. If you're listening to us on Spotify, I guess I'll just read it out to you. If you don't have it in front of you, but they have Clemson week 1, which, by the way, I think it was confirmed that College Game Day will be there, so that's going to be your SEC on ABC game of the week. There, 7:30 kickoff. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit be there. Peter Herbstreit probably be there as well. So have Clemson week 1. You have your G5, regional G5 team in Louisiana. Then you have Ole Miss. Not only is it a rivalry game, but it's also Lane Kiffin's return to Ole Miss. Not to mention you lost them last year and Vaught winning it and Vaught Hemingway. So it's literally it's a revenge game at the scene of the crime. So that's off the bat. You have one revenge game. You have another revenge game in Texas A&M. You have to host them again. So they're coming back to you. They have your FCS team, regional FCS team in McNeese State, and you have at Kentucky, Mississippi State, out of Auburn. You should be favored in those games, I would imagine. Yes, even at Auburn, I think you guys will be a significant favorite in that game, even though it's on the road. Then you have Bama at home, Texas at home, at Tennessee. Then you have Arkansas in the rivalry game, right, on Thanksgiving weekend. So And in most of those games, I guess you'll be favored in probably most, except for probably. And I mean, look, who knows? But I would imagine you'll probably a dog at Ole Miss, slight dog. I think he'll be favored against Texas A&M. I'm not sure. Uh, from Kentucky down to Auburn, you'll be favorites in those games pretty significantly, I think. Bama, Texas, and Tennessee, you'll probably be either a pick'em or a slight dog in all those games. No, that sounds crazy, but I do believe that is certainly not out of the realm possibility at Arkansas. I think you should take care of them. I think. So if you do that, that's probably 5 games you should be dogs or, close spread, if you will. It's not necessarily a major advantage for you. Again, most of your tough games, you have most of these are on the road. So at Ole Miss Ole Miss on the road, Tennessee on the road. So there's only two tough games you have are on the road, right? Then you have the rest of the tough games are at home. So again, thankfully for you, for LSU, the majority of your most challenging games are going to be at home, right? I think that is something that you would like to have, especially for first year staff and trying to get build up hype. I think it is a good thing that you have that. So you have that, at least you have that to your advantage to have the majority of your tough games at home. I think getting a huge win against Clemson huge win. Let me rephrase that. But getting LSU, LSU, you can't play yourself. Again, getting Clemson at home, getting Texas A&M at home, getting Bama at home, getting Texas at home. That is huge. I mean, again, it would be a lot different if you got those games on the road. So, let's see here. I guess we will exit out the schedule and we'll move on to the best case and worst case scenario. Now, again, before we get into that, a lot of this, again, will have to hinge on the health of that's why he's not there anymore, of Sam Levitt. If he's healthy, then this LSU team should be, I think, really good, right? Fairly good. I think you should be excited about that. If he's not, I believe, who is it? The Longstreet kid, I believe, is who the other transfer was. So they have to go with him. He's a younger kid. He's more raw. We'll see. But I think I do believe having Sam Levitt healthy, among everything else, I think is very important there for LSU. And not to mention the other things, the first year struggles. Look, there's a possibility here where even if everyone's healthy, even if Sam Levitt's ready to go and he's ready to, tear it up with the Lane Kiffin's offense. Again, much like with any other coach, with the exception of the 3 ones I just mentioned earlier, Malzahn, Cignetti, Sonny Dykes, it usually goes pretty bumpy your first year. Again, go ask Georgia fans how it was under Kirby Smart's first year. You almost lost to Nichols State, and he lost to Vanderbilt. Okay, so that can happen. Tell us, who knows? Maybe you might lose to Louisiana Tech. Not guarantee. Totally not guarantee. I don't think that's gonna happen, but you could. You could lose to Auburn on the road potentially. That'll be, that'll be shocking, but not necessarily out of the realm of possibility. So again, even with the fact that you have a lot of your tough games at home, those other games on the schedule, like Auburn, going to Ole Miss, obviously, and going to having Clemson at home early in the year, there is a possibility you lose those games too, along with the other games I just mentioned. Your other high-profile games, your Alabamas of the world, your Tennessees of the world, your Texases of the world. So it's not out of the possibilities that you could see this LSU team. Well, again, they're very, very talented. Again, like Kiffin inherited, they have a very, very good roster. It may not be a very smooth transition to begin with. Again, you could easily lose to Clemson. You could easily lose to Ole Miss. You could easily start 1-2. That would be a little bit shocking. That would be very jarring, but that's not out of the real possibility, given that your 2 out of your 3 2 out of your first 3 games are going to be against teams that are very respectable and teams that I have a lot of interest in, especially Ole Miss, for example. Again, that's has a lot of storylines baked into it already, on top of it being a rivalry game. Not to mention Clemson with Abel Sweeney, who I still respect. We talked about them last week. There's a real possibility. Again, you could start 1-2. We even talked about this, I believe, a month or 2 ago. So let's go ahead and look at what we think here for the best case and worst case and most reasonable. Again, these are not straight up predictions. These are just projections here. We're just, putting out all the realms of possibilities here, the big 3 possibilities. So get this pulled up and I'll explain this to you and sort of give you my reasoning for why. Or at least I guess sort of break it down, even though I can't just give you the reasons. But anyway, see here. Is this the one I want? Yep. Okay. Move this over here onto the other side. You guys can see it. So yeah, for LSU, best case scenario, 10-2. Sounds kind of again for first year staff that may sound a little bit surprising, but it should not. Again, given how much of an upgrade you are getting with not just the offense, but just the entire coaching staff in general. Yes, you do keep Blake Baker, our American hero Blake Baker, still there. That's huge for Lane getting him, and of course you bring in the offense. So best case scenario, if everything goes swimming in well, no injuries, maybe it is like a Malzahn year 1 at Auburn, Kirkson-Eddy year 1 at Indiana. 10-2, not all the real possibility here. Again, the fact that you have the majority of your tough games at home, you have that home field advantage, that helps you. That does help you. And that does certainly matter. Now, the worst case scenario, like we just mentioned, I made the argument, is 7-5. Again, if you do start 1-2 in your first 3 games, losing to Clemson and Ole Miss, that's where that 7-5 there could be in play. Again, I know that sounds shocking given a lot of folks are hyping up LSU, and there's a lot of folks who are excited about them. Again, I understand that. I am also very excited about them as well. But you have to also understand that the 7-5 scenario, the first year slump, is always in the realms of possibility. Again, it's if this is a different program, like I don't know, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Maryland, maybe that worst case scenario is even worse. So 7-5 for Maryland, that's like a historical good year. Nothing against Maryland, but yeah, I think 7-5 is worst case scenario. That's not all that shouldn't surprise you, really. And I'm trying to get ahead of that a little bit of extent. I know there'll be a lot of folks who are going to say, worst case scenario, 9-3, best case scenario, 12-0. I'm just telling you, there is a 7-5 worst case scenario, first year slump. Okay. Now, the most reasonable possibility, the one that to me that makes more sense, I think is 9-3. Again, you have games against Ole Miss, Tennessee. Those are going to be tough games on the road. You also have Bama coming to town. You have Texas again. Those 4 games, and I guess you want to throw in Clemson. You can lose all of them. Now you can win most of them. But I think with me, what is more likely in that reasonable scenario, you probably lose 3 out of those, 5 games? So you win 2 of them, you lose 3. Okay? So I guess, I don't know, you lose to Texas. Maybe you lose to Alabama. Maybe you lose to Clemson. Now, again, like I mentioned earlier, the only game on that schedule that makes me sort of pause, that's not named, that's not a part of those, I guess what would be like those big 6 games you have on the schedule would probably be at Auburn. But again, we don't know. That's slightly later in the year. Auburn at that point could be on quit watch. Who knows, given the fact that they lost a lot of talent off of last year too. Now, granted, they upgraded with the coaching staff. I will give them that. But talent roster got a lot worse. So that is a game that, again, based on where the vibes are with Auburn, that one could be a game where, it could be a trap game there. It could be a landmine game. It could be a game that if you're an LSU fan, you go, all right, who we're playing this week? Oh, yeah, Auburn. Okay, yeah, we beat them. Last time we lost them. Checks. 2021, no big deal. We'll be fine. We haven't lost to Auburn in a normal year, not including 2020, probably since 2014, which is, gosh, that is kind of a long time ago. Wow. 10 plus years. So, yeah, that's not out of the realm possibility that could potentially happen. Not likely, but we'll see. So, again, best case scenario for listening on Spotify. Again, best case scenario, 10-2. Worst case scenario, 7-5. Again, injuries, the first year slump. Maybe Meyer. St. Levitt's not totally healthy. You bring in the Longstreet kid at quarterback, then I think that's probably in play. Most reasonable, I think, is 9-3. Yeah, and you can argue amongst yourselves in the comments section. I would be willing to see your best case, worst case, reasonable scenarios there for LSU. Again, it's not a perfect science, but, is what it is. All right, moving right along here as we finish up the show. Again, shorter show today. Totally apologize for that. It's just how the schedule kind of works sometimes. So I'm going to get some water real quick, and then we'll move right into our final topic, and we'll get out of here. Again, hopefully Thursday should be a lot more active. And I think it might, hopefully. So speaking of LSU and Lane Kiffin, yeah, his Vanity Fair thing. So this was teased out, about what, a few weeks ago, I believe, at the beginning of the month. They were doing the photo shoot for the magazine, so we knew this was coming, right? A lot of folks on Twitter and the socials were bringing it up, how interesting this was going to be and whatnot. So I have some thoughts on this. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this. A lot of the other stuff that Lane brought up, I'll let other folks talk about. A lot of it kind of dives into the political realm, so I'll let other folks who dive into political stuff dive into that. That's not what the show is. But I will sort of give a very general overview, just sort of I guess like a recap of my thoughts on Lane Kiffin. What does this Vanity Fair article change my opinion of him? Does it make it worse of him? Just from the football standpoint, right? So when Lane Kiffin took the whole LSU job, right? When there was the whole will he, won't he thing, the whole, felt like we were watching, a actual TV show, a reality show in real life. I told you guys I really didn't care for it in terms of I didn't care about the whole, is it wrong, is it right? To me, brilliant marketing, right? Getting people invested. It's getting, folks, interested into what your decision is going to be and what could be next. And you have all this, craziness going on with Lane and Ole Miss and what will happen to them. So that whole aspect of it, I don't really care. I think from his standpoint, it's good marketing. It's, good to get his name out there, and it makes him, kind of getting a lot more folks talking about him than they would traditionally for any other coaching search. And by the way, too, outside of maybe some NFL searches, I cannot remember a time where one coaching search and one coaching situation got all the attention. No scandal at all, by the way. This was just, will he or won't he leave? So just from that standpoint alone, I will give some credit to Lane, at least from that standpoint, where you got folks invested, or you did a good job of marketing yourself to, get folks invested. And I grant you, a lot of folks have opinions on, was it, sort of snakish of him to do that? Was it, necessary? I thought it was funny, but that's my own take on it. And of course, he leaves Ole Miss to go to LSU. I think from the job standpoint, LSU has an upgrade, right? Ole Miss, yes, they have done a better job at upgrading, facilities and doing all the other stuff, like getting, they were ahead on NIL before everyone else was. So that is totally reasonable to leave LSU or to leave Ole Miss to go to LSU from a facility standpoint, budget standpoint. Yes, Ole Miss did improve a little bit over the last few years, and they made a lot of strides. And in fact, a lot of folks will forget this. He almost took the Auburn job, and I think was it last year, I believe. This time last year, there was that ESPNU documentary or whatever. I think a lot of folks were talking about it, like Josh Pate were. We're talking about a little bit about his decision to not go to Auburn a couple years ago when they fired Brian Harsin. They hired Hugh Freeze. That was real. And I think Lane, he's admitted it now. He was going to take the job. He was serious about it. And at the last moment, he decided, I'm not doing it. I'm not, I'm paraphrasing here, but I think his words are basically saying, I'm not ready for it yet. I want to stay here and, build up my resume and get this consistently going. Then maybe eventually down the road, I'll leave. He does end up leaving. So I know a lot of folks, again, we're not going to get into the whole, political stuff and whatnot that he does bring up in the article for those reasons why he left. But in terms of the football reasons why he left, I get it. Right. LSU is definitely a much better job in the realm of the head coaching job hierarchy, right? For to do a whole rankings list, LSU would probably be definitely in the top 5. I don't know if it's number 1 necessarily, but it's definitely 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that realm, right? So that I understand. Now, all the other stuff about Lane, how Lane kind of went about in this, Vanity Fair article, and again, was this article does it really change my opinion or whatnot? Not really. I don't really care. To me, I think in general, this article was basically made for the casuals, right? Josh Pate brings up a lot, the casual fans, the flyby fans. This is what this article was made for, right? The folks who were not college football sickos or were not even just barely paying attention to what was going on last year, right? And I think that is probably what this article was made for, right? So in general, I think in a broad sense, you're not getting to the real specifics here. Just the fact he was even doing this, I don't care. It's mainly just noise. Doesn't change my opinion on him taking the job. Doesn't change my opinion of you thinking, yeah, sure, it's kind of strange he did the whole, will he, won't he go saga, but it was good entertainment. It was good TV, and I think a lot of folks would probably admit that. But still weird, but, got to give him some credit where credit is due. So even with this article coming out, my opinion of that has not changed. Okay. Now, of course, within the last couple of hours, we had several folks chime in on other things Lane Kiffin has said about Ole Miss. So they're dealing with academics and whatnot. And you have, people like Steve Sarkisian talking about like bag weaving or whatnot, and John Sturmall's involved. Again, much like this article in totality, basically just noise. I think again, this article again, in my opinion, just the whole fact the article even exists. My opinion, just noise. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it'll just made for the casuals. Now, it'll be interesting to see what Josh Pitt has to say about this because someone I trust in terms of his opinions on things for the most part, and it'll be interesting to hear, whether or not him and some other folks in the industry knew what this article was going to consist of. In my opinion, if I had to guess, now again, I'm not trying to speak for Josh here. I'm just guessing if he knew or not. I think he did know. I think a lot of folks in the industry, like him, folks over on Cover 3, and others, like folks over on 3, like JD Pickell. Yeah, I think they probably knew what was in this article. I'm sure folks within the industry and sources probably told them, "Hey, just heads up, this is what's in the article. Just don't be surprised by it." So that I do believe is probably true. I think he probably, folks like Josh Pate, JD Pickell, and others in the industry definitely knew what this article was going to contain. I even think some coaches probably knew what this article was going to contain. But again, from my standpoint, I think this whole article in general just said existing, just noise. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think all it is just it just exists for the casuals, to folks who don't follow college football, those who are looking for personal stories and going into the whole nitty gritty and stuff. I know there's an audience for that, but for me, it's like I don't really care that much. Like, yeah, I get it. Lane was conflicted on leaving twice at Ole Miss, both with the Auburn job and now, last year with Ole Miss. So to me, it's not much of a surprise. I just think it's really noise. And even with this quote unquote drama, if you will, quotation marks drama with Summerall and Steve Sarkisian bringing up what he mentioned earlier about Ole Miss and folks sort of attacking Ole Miss now in conjunction with Lane Kiffin's article. It's really I don't really care. It's just noise, right? I don't really care. It's just people on social media just saying stuff. I don't think it has much in the realm of substance as all other than just. It's really just. It just is what it is, right? And you have again Summerall on Twitter saying stuff about basket weaving, and Steve Sarkisian mentioned it too with that, the whole Ole Miss academic standards. Again, in my opinion, noise. I don't really care about it. People say things. I don't know what to say. I don't really care that much in general about their opinions on Ole Miss's academics and how they handle things. Like, okay, like is it a real shocker that college football players don't go to class? Not really. As the one Cardell Jones said once upon a time, we do not play school. So anyway, but yeah, that's my thoughts on the Vanity Fair thing. Again, it's the article itself, just it existing. My opinion, just noise. I don't really care about that much. Who really cares? But my opinion, it doesn't really change my opinion on Lane Kiffin in general. I think he's only do fine at LSU. It is what it is. And that's it for the show. Under 40 minutes, a little bit shorter than usual, but we some time constraints here and whatnot, especially if we're starting a little bit later. Will we do an extra pod? I think we might do one this week. It's not a guarantee, but we'll see. But of course, we'll be back Thursday as per usual. So until then, again, a few things here before we leave. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, obviously here on YouTube, live on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed. Very, very important. That's the only place, by the way, you can get those extra pods. So until Thursday, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, Wednesday, and we'll